I've never seen a diamond in the flesh. I cut my teeth on wedding rings in the movies, and I'm not proud of my address.
We're not just building muscle, we're building men. In the quiet hours, in the unfiltered moments, in the conversations that happen before the world wakes up. This is The Gloom, where brotherhood forms in the dark so we can lead in the light, where vulnerability is strength and leadership is handed from man to man, one story at a time. Our mission is to empower, exhort, and inspire men to achieve their best selves through stories of reinvigorated male community leadership. We bring you weekly interviews with F3 Omaha packs, ordinary men doing extraordinary things in fitness, fellowship, faith, and leadership, because we believe that every man has a story, and reinvigoration starts when that story is shared. This is The Glue in the Gloom. Shout out to our sponsors, Avior Wealth Management, Liberty Core Real Estate, Major Team Mortgage, Exclusively Eye Care, Omaha Laser Dentistry, and McNamara Law Firm. We appreciate your support. Are you or someone you know in the market to buy a new home? Well, if so, check out Major Team Mortgage. They specialize in home purchase and refinance home loans. Their mission is to purposely empower people to experience their good life through building wealth with real estate. You know, showing up in the gloom is no different than showing up for a conversation around your future of building wealth with real estate. Join the action economy and get in the game with Sasquatch. Text or call John at 402-212-0149 to schedule a time today. Individual NMLS number 1393750. Company NMLS number 2478164. Equal housing lender. Now, let's get back to the gloom. All right, and we're back. We're live. I got my man Dinger here. I have to share, as I was on my way here getting ready for this, I was thinking about, Dinger and I really, we got close this last summer when I was trying to sledgehammer some, basically electrical wiring under my driveway. And I'm like talking about it at a Beatdown, and he's like, I think I could probably help with some of the gate stuff. So you've helped my family to be more secure, right, with the installing the gate. And I'll never forget, I just remember being so impressed with the precision and I was like, okay, this guy pulls out a laser level and is helping me level these gates. And I just remember thinking like, I got the right guy because he knows what he's doing. And if I would have put the thing up, I would have been annoyed for years. So every time I drive in and out of my house, I see those gates and I'm like, they look good. They're still level. So I don't know. But tell us from an F3 standpoint, would love to hear EH story, like who got you out. And then I don't think I know the naming story. So would love to hear like first impressions of the workout and how'd you get the name Dinger?
Yeah. So Bernie had EH me and Heist at the same time. We were out together as a couple one night, and he was telling us about the workout and really had us interested. And we both, me and Heist, were kind of looking at each other like we need something. It was middle of winter. It was between Christmas and New Year's.
Okay.
And so we didn't end up, he was trying to get us to go to the Berm that next night or that next morning. We didn't end up doing that. And then he had said, well, and then we had something, I think that it was New Year's, and then it was right after New Year's was the next Berm. It was a Thursday. And we were kind of going back and forth. And Bernie had reached out again and said, hey, if you guys don't want to go here, you're kind of throwing out some options, no pressure. And, full disclosure, me and Heist were kind of like, this kind of sounds kind of like a cult or something. Yeah. And so we had a background text going, and then finally we said, no, we need to, at least give it a shot. But it was at the Berm. Greenhouse was queuing. There was a ton of guys there, and it was a cold morning. It was January 4th. So my 2 years coming up. But I remember I was super out of shape. And then we kind of did the warmo, and then we were running around the soccer fields there, and I couldn't even make it around once.
Oh, wow.
Without stopping and walking. And then so Snitzel, who was a site queue at the time, he had to stop and walk with me, and we walked. It was so bad, I've told a couple people this, the nicest guy, probably an F3, he finally was like, you need to run. You can't just keep walking the whole time. And so it was good. But then I remember we didn't go anywhere Friday, and then we went to Buns on Saturday. And then after that, we were both going 4 or 5 times a week,
Nice.
after that, and it's been, like I said, a life-changing event for me, but in all aspects, and then beyond even those aspects, but, yeah, that's how we got started and,
Yeah.
really thankful for it, I mean, can't believe it's almost been 2 years now.
So it sounds like the workout itself was difficult. What were your other first impressions? You remember, like, you're like, okay, there's a lot of guys. It's cold.
Yeah, I was surprised about the amount of people just because the time frame and the weather,
Yeah.
and just typical, I would say ego stuff, you know what I mean? Didn't know you kind of walk up into a big group like that. Normally it's kind of awkward, but everybody was so inviting and genuine. You think it's kind of, oh, they just want to help out here, but then
Mhm.
literally everybody, and then people were reaching out afterwards, which I know is kind of like both Greenhouse and Snitzel reached out a couple of times after that. And
Nice.
it was one of those deals. In the moment, it seemed like, oh, this is just kind of a sales tactic,
Yeah.
if you
Yeah.
will.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
everybody is so genuine, and then just all the principles we talk about. There's no man left behind. You know what I mean? It doesn't matter how you start; it's
Mm.
what effort you give. And I wasn't given the right amount of effort, but
Hmm.
um, so yeah, I mean, it was just very almost taken aback at the authenticity
Yeah.
of the whole thing, and then all the individuals.
Yeah.
So,
What about the name?
oh,
What'd you
sorry.
say when you got the name?
So it was me and my wife, which we had originally known each other, but we started dating at the College World Series.
Okay.
So then that's what it came from. We had known each other a little bit years before, and then so that's where I was kind of so out of breath that, I didn't know what was going
Yeah.
on. I remember it wasn't very long. It didn't string out very long because there was so many guys there.
Yeah.
Um, but all things considered, I'll take. I never. I'll take it.
Yeah. It
So
could have been worse, right?
yeah.
Oh, I love it. So talk me through. So you mentioned like you knew you needed something like this. What do you mean by that?
So it was just, I mean, was gaining weight, and it was kind of I'd fluctuate with the seasons. It seemed like, my
Mm.
weight, and wasn't really ever didn't have a regimen. Would not very good at self-policing, I would say, like, working out. I tried to work out by myself, tried indoors. I didn't like running on treadmills, then I didn't like running outside by myself, and then
Yeah.
didn't really even think I liked running, and then just kinda got into a funk and a groove, and wasn't eating right at all, wasn't keeping good sleep hours. I had really bad sleep issues for a couple of years, like,
Mm.
literally right up until F3, and then ever since then, I haven't had. I can maybe count on less than, one hand how many times I've woken up in the middle of the night. I'd only sleep for a couple hours at a time, and then I'd be up the whole night, and then the
Yeah.
whole day would be shot, or the middle part of the day. But ever since F3, kind of getting into that regiment, I think your body needs that consistency, and then that's been another kind of peripheral blessing, but a big one for me.
That's awesome. I
Yeah.
love it. That's so cool to hear all the different things, right? It's like when you get into a routine, right? Just your body kind of snaps back in, like you
Y-
get all the circadian rhythms and all of the, I'm sure there's a ton of science behind that. That's awesome. So you had like long stretches where you were like operating on a couple hours of sleep
Oh
throughout the
yeah,
day?
yeah. I mean, there would be. I would say more times than not. I'd say the majority of the 7 days of a week, I would wake up at 2 or 3 in the morning,
Wow.
and then just would not be able to get back to sleep. And I think some of that was anxiety, but it also was anxiety because I wasn't using my energy the right way, and then I
Mm.
was kind of letting I internalized a lot of things, and then which F3 has helped with, with just being open and
Yeah.
honest and candid about stuff. So it's been uh huge in every aspect beyond just being tired, you know what I mean? But
Yeah.
and I've told a bunch of guys this, when you start to post, it affects in theory the morning, but then your day is better, and then the night before is better because
Mhm.
you're going to post. So I mean, it literally affects the 24 hours. If you're posting 2 days in a row, every hour is affected and better.
Yeah.
It does get to be a grind physically, but like, I mean, as far as just your overall mental health, physical health, it changes every hour of the day. That's why I always tell guys, if you can kind of get into a sequence,
Yeah.
and even if it is every other day, you're still kind of mapping that out. Um, with what you do that morning if you're going to post the next morning, because then you're going to eat something. Selfishly, I don't want to eat something bad. You know what I
Yeah,
mean? Yeah,
yeah,
ever. But then also, it's like, why would I eat this bad when I have to go work out? It's gonna be that much harder for
right.
me.
Yeah,
So
heck yeah, I love it. Kind of all the dots connect. What so you're also the first guy that we're interviewing that has done Crucible TV. So I feel like I've got a little extra insight that maybe I don't always have. But I feel like you maybe mentioned there that you had grown up like playing sports and all that. Like what was fitness like before? I'm assuming this is like you had kids and then life got busy and kind of got into this rut. But what was it like before that?
yeah, so growing up, grow up in a rural Iowa community. But just love. I can just remember no matter what I play any sport. I just wanted to compete. I just wanted the competition
Yeah,
is all I wanted. And highly competitive family, grew up like that, and a lot of my friends, it was the same way. You kind of fall in the same clique, so you're playing same sports with a lot of the same friends, and then you get to meet other kids from the surrounding communities. But I was always just active. I mean, I just remember always, even sports I didn't competitively play. I never played competitive basketball, but I
yeah,
still would go if there was kids playing basketball. We
yeah,
would play basketball all the time if that's what was somebody was doing, just because I just love the competition of it. And then continue that, through high school, played baseball in college, for a while. Like I said, was never really had to, I didn't, I love the competition part of it. I did not love the process part. That's
yeah,
before,
yeah,
now I know all the things, uh, I love to win, but I always wasn't doing the things necessary outside of the actual competition. But as far as keeping up fitness wise, even then after college years, and then it starts to catch up with you slowly and slowly and slowly. And I kind of staved it, got into it a little bit. We did some like 5K runs, which at that time seemed like a big deal, training for them forever.
yeah,
But I was just trying to find something to work towards because I could just feel self getting soft and just everything getting away from me a little bit. And then like you said, then had kids, and that gets to be a more of a time crunch, which is another great thing about F3. You can get it done before kids are up. But yeah, I would say I hadn't literally worked out outside. I would say worked out in general for 3 or 4 years
yeah,
before
yeah.
we went to that post at the berm.
Yeah. What, so you're from, I have to ask because I feel like I know, so you're from Logan,
Correct.
Iowa. Do you know a guy named Mike Dickinson? Does that name ring a
Yeah,
bell?
he was in my class.
Was he really?
Yeah,
So he was, so when I started as a nurse, he trained me
yeah.
as a nurse. And I'll never forget it was like my first week as a nurse. He's like, "Hey, you got to come out to the farm. We're castrating calves. You should come out and join us." And I'm like city boy to a T, and I don't even know what castrating calves means. Right? I had to like Google it. And so I go out to his farm and we're like castrating calves, and I'm like, this is a really like absurd process. Like I didn't know this even existed. And then of course he's got me holding the head gate, and one of the calves gets out, and I'm like, so it's funny. So you actually know him, or you knew
Oh
him.
yeah, no,
Yeah.
he was in my class, yeah. And then I think which he still farms, but I ran into him actually at a funeral for one of our mutual friends, and I think he's really, he has a bunch of the big Costco chicken bar. Or that was
Yeah.
right when that was all
Yep.
getting going. That would have been the
Exactly.
last time. But yeah, I guess I
What
never
a
knew that.
small world.
Yeah, so
That
yeah, he'd have lived. So you went because then he'd have lived south of Logan, like north of Beatdown,
yeah,
yeah, out there
yeah,
on the
yep.
farm. Yeah,
That is funny. What a small world. Yeah, his sister was also a nurse. I remember. So when I heard you on the Crucible TV saying, or QSource TV saying that you were from Logan, I'm like, I think that's where Mike's from. So, tell me about baseball in college. Would you play? Where'd you go?
so played center field. I went to Buena Vista, so it's in
Okay.
Storm Lake. It'd be east of um, Sioux City, and then like south of Okoboji and Spencer
Okay.
and stuff there. So yeah, I mean, really like, and then made a bunch of, probably made one of those deals, a wrong decision going there, but then some of the people I met there, I mean, still are some of my best, as a
Yeah.
lot of people, your college friends, your less or later formative years. Literally my best friend to this day is a guy which I knew before then, but he lived on the same um hall as me when I went there, and then he played football. A lot of my friends up there played football,
Yeah.
but yeah, it was one of those probably wrong decisions, which in the long run was a right decision just
Yeah.
because of the people I met and the memories, the lessons, and good and bad
Yeah.
that I made. I had some hard learning experiences, if you will,
Yeah.
but no, it was like I said, all in all, I wouldn't change a thing. And
When you say it was the wrong decision, like, in terms of the baseball career, like, or you just in terms of
everything, yeah.
yeah.
Probably, I mean, my sister, she was older than me. We weren't like super. I didn't make the decision because she went there, but I mean, it was kind of a easy decision.
Sure.
I should say.
Yeah.
I knew some people. It was a comfort level.
Yeah.
Didn't want to
Not
go
too far from
outside.
home.
Yeah,
Yeah.
a couple hours from home.
Yep.
It wasn't being challenged. But and then
Yeah.
I at that time, you don't realize your mind is making that decision for you. But now looking back, um, hindsight's 2020, but I still wouldn't change any of it. But yeah, knowing what I know now, or kind of some of the life's lessons we try and teach our kids, I would probably try and shift them in a different direction.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, yeah. Yeah,
but
it's interesting. But you still got from a fitness standpoint, right? Like being a college athlete, that experience, right? I'm sure you're hitting the gym regularly and all of that, right?
yeah, no, that was the athletic side of it, I guess, aside, you know what I
Yeah.
mean? But yeah,
That's all right.
but then after that, because I only played a year there,
Okay.
and then I quit baseball,
Oh, okay.
and then um, so then I wasn't really working. I guess I would work out a little bit, but then I always worked outside in the summers at college, and then just continued even during the school year, work construction. So I was always staying active enough, at least to
Yeah.
kind of maintain,
Yeah.
but nothing real regimented at that time.
Interesting. I love it. It's so cool to just hear, like, just all the different paths. And now baseball, I feel like, is try to go pro in that sport. There's like even little league baseball around town here is like single A, double A, triple A, pro. Yeah, like there's all these different levels, right? So
Yeah.
fast forward to me. So because when I think about working out with you, I think like you're a guy who put like when you lead a workout, it's a hard beat down. And when I've been on pre-runs with you, you're like seven sub 8 pace for sure. I don't know if you've hit sub 7. So how did you go from like Snitzel walking you around that track to like where you're at today?
I mean, probably similar to a lot of people, F3 journey, I just could not get enough, you know what I mean? And then
Mm,
that's just kind of my personality too. Once I go in something, I usually go all in. And so it was just, you know, those guys, kind of there was a big group, kind of more of the Northwest, kind of guys, Truly, Speed Bump, Stripe, Stripes was a big, kind of semi EHS because him and Bernie were so close, and then Stripes was running Badger at that time,
yeah.
and just they kind of said, "Well, come to a pre-run." I said, "Well, I can't, go that far." And they said, "Well, just try it." And I still was even hesitant. And I remember then me and Bernie, we would go like even here at the Armory. I remember we would run to the hill, and then we would turn around and come back, and we just kind of started chipping away, and eventually, then just going full pre-runs,
Mm,
going out to different sites, everything. And I just, and I've actually told the story when I queued one time. There's a great quote from Steve Prefontaine, a really good runner. And he says, "To give anything less than your best is a sacrifice, a gift." And I
mm,
know, I kind of think about those things. When you're out there, we're gonna do it. Let's just do it, and that's
yeah.
kind of how I try and approach it. There's some mornings it feels like, because F3 you could get as much and as little out of it as possible.
Totally.
And that's a good and a bad thing.
Mhm.
And there are mornings I catch myself just thinking about that and kind of motivates you to, if we're gonna get here, let's get something out of it.
Yeah.
And then you're kind of, I feel like you're cheating the group. Then if somebody sees me slacking, then what kind of example is that? It's a newer guy, it's
Yeah.
just the domino effect. But that's and just seeing, I mean, a lot of it was just trying to keep up with guys, and I never
Yeah.
could keep up with you, but trying to keep up with Speed Bump, Truly, those guys.
Yeah.
It was a tough road to hoe for a while, but then after, you know how it is, after you get going pre-running, I almost, if I just went to a beatdown, it didn't feel like I was
Right.
getting,
Right.
at the end of it, it'd be like, oh man, I
Yeah.
don't feel like I really put in enough effort. And I need to kind of get back into that because I've been slipping here lately.
Yeah. I had that happen this morning we were out at the bridge for Landman's one year and I overslept the pre-run and I'm like, sometimes if I do that, I'm like, I don't even think I'm gonna go, you know? And so then I went to the workout at coffee. I'm sort of like, man, I don't know if I can do the, fancy coffee with all the calories. So I didn't get out
Feel like
for a
you're
run.
cheating. Yeah, you
Yeah.
feel guilty. Yeah.
But what have you so I guess did you have goals you were chasing? Or you just sort of said, you know what, I'm gonna do this. I need to get back in shape. And so you just kind of went for it.
Yeah, no, there was nothing tangible at the beginning, and then when I just needed something, just to try something rather than just joining a gym,
Yeah.
and then once I got into it, then I did set a goal. I wanted to lose 30 pounds by summer,
Okay.
and then ended up doing that, and then it was then more, like, timed, running certain miles per week, and then making sure that average was, below a certain number, and then trying to hit, run a 10K then once a month and stuff. I just kind of keep on growing on those things because as I kind of started to hit some of those, then I wanted to at least keep on throwing other things out there and just keep the runway going. Um, but it was more just needing to find something to get a goal, even realistic goal
Yeah.
set, and then like I said, then the eating right, and then we switched to that, or, trying to eat healthier. So then I guess that'd be it's not a tangible goal, but it just, I know what you're not supposed to eat. And then my she does a great job, really into every ingredient, literally
Mm.
we eat and then the kids eat. Did a couple of fasts, which I never in a million
Yeah.
years thought I would do with,
How many hours did you get to
we
fasting?
did 72.
Wow.
And so,
That's good.
and it was awesome. That's why Porky Butts will probably be one of the best places ever to me because that's where we met. Like I literally had to take the bone broth inside because it was like 6 minutes until and when everybody was in there, so I just
Yeah.
took my bone broth inside to get right at 72 hours, and then we ate there. But
That's
no, that's a different test. You know what I mean? And that's
yeah.
what you kind of need sometimes. Things you're not used to and comfortable with. So.
Heck yeah. I love it. I for guys that don't know, so when you do this fast, and I think Armando's done like 96 hours or some crazy amount, but when you do the fast, it's like you can have water and coffee and and
We did the 0 calorie one, yeah, so it was
okay.
just water and black coffee, and then
Okay.
I don't like black coffee, so then I was just doing water, um, and after and maybe there was a big group of us, there was 4 or 5, and so that was good, like,
Mhm.
it's just like anything, I don't think I could do a fast on my own,
Yeah.
but just having the guys say, you know, "Not doing so well, getting better, this
Yeah.
isn't so bad," and then you're kinda getting the right mindset, everybody, and then you kinda get closer, and I was surprised at, how I mean, I remember we ordered food and we ordered way too much because none of us could eat really,
Right.
but it's like, this isn't I'm not even, like, starving. It was good to eat, but, yeah, it definitely was a huge mental challenge, but having the group, just like so many things in F3 really helped me.
Yeah. That's awesome. I would be curious where you at today with like fitness goals. I guess how much weight did you lose in total? 30 plus pounds?
Yeah, so I think at the most, it was, let's say 36, I think was the most that I ended
That's
up,
awesome.
and then I'm about 5 pounds above that now, which, is nice that I haven't been working out. I've been still trying to eat and maintain somewhat good diet,
Mhm.
but my body would fluctuate so much in the past. I would either drop some weight and then, for a couple months or, couple weeks or a month, and then it would go right back. But
Yeah.
I haven't been working out as much as I should, but I feel like my body's kind of found a good balancing point.
Yeah.
Even though I'm getting older. So, but I still do need to work out and kind of get back on it. But I really because I was trying to get down to 212 and I got
Okay.
down to 215. That was the second goal. First one was get to 225, then I want to get down to 212, and I got to 215 was the lowest that I got. And
Okay.
I wasn't weighing myself that much there for a long time, but I just was more knew that I was in a good space. And
Yeah.
so I wasn't really too concerned with
Yeah. Tell me about so when you think about kind of this fitness journey, right? And then or maybe it's just like the F3 journey in general. Talk me through like so you had some guys EH you, right? We've got these sites that are in your community in Bennington. What that first workout, like, did you know a bunch of guys, or how did you kind of build relationships? Thinking about like the fellowship side of things.
yeah, so no, knew obviously Bernie and Stripes. I don't believe, because I wouldn't even say when I went the first time with the Badger, I didn't know. I think it would have just been those guys kind of in the Bennington group
Mm,
that even the Bennington group was even smaller than, it's, I
yeah.
felt like I was right before it really blew up.
Yeah.
Um, and so I didn't know, um, anybody outside of those guys, even when we were going. But then as far as kind of getting, uh, a group, or, just getting included like in conversations, or, kind of just seeing guys, those Northwest guys, like I said, you know, truly who I thought was uh just a really nice guy. Well, then I found out what a weasel shaker is, and then it's like, well, that's his job,
Yeah.
is to
Yeah.
kind of get you in. So
He's
then,
getting paid to be my
yeah,
friend.
so his commission check was obviously after that
Yeah.
cashed. He didn't reach out much, but no. So so I was going around with, Stripes, Truly, Speed Bump, Bernie. We were going around to all the sites. Um, when I really started to get into pre-run, then I, like I said, would go outside kind of the Northwest sector,
Yeah.
and then just beyond that, then you start to meet. Then we'd have meet up for happy hours, stuff like that, and then get NCAA basketball pools going. Just everything. And it just kind of snowballs, and then especially in the Northwest and in Bennington, it's grown so much. And I've known some of those people before they've now come out. But even then, like, you think of a smaller community like Bennington, there's so many people I've met just in Bennington
Yeah.
here in the last couple of years. And then not to mention all the other guys throughout the metro area. But yeah, the fellowship side has been, and that's what my M always says, you more just go so you can bullshit at coffee. You don't even drink coffee, and
Yeah.
that is true. You know what I mean? It is nice.
Yeah. Yeah.
Even well, and the weekends are nice. On Saturdays you go somewhere and nobody's in as much of a rush, so you get to have some good conversation and real conversations. I was very, I wouldn't say standoffish, but like QSource, I didn't understand it, but that even when I did understand it, I kind of was
Oh,
arm's length. I said, oh, I'd rather just socialize. But then now here, especially since the Crucible, and then going down to Paradise with Mayday, another
yeah.
Bennington guy in spokes. It's really something I really enjoy.
Yeah.
And just hearing the different perspectives and the just the intentionality of it, and people can be direct without being contentious. You know what I mean? And then people to receive the direct. Everybody can usually give direct feedback, but a lot of people can't receive it.
Yeah.
And that's where I feel like I need room to grow. But just seeing that you can you can have those conversations, and it doesn't have to go beyond this setting, or or in a negative way.
Yeah.
There's nothing said. I appreciate that. I still remember, you probably don't even remember this. We were sitting outside Stories. It was when I first started after Combine, and Combine, because it doesn't open right, and
Yeah. So Combine would be
or Karma.
Karma.
Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah.
and you were talking about your job,
Yeah.
and I think it was just, a coworker or something, and I didn't know slow pitch at all at the time, and then he said, "Well, did you ever think maybe that you're out of line?" And I was just like, kind of laughed, because I thought he was joking, and he was dead serious. And then
Yeah.
you guys got it, right into a serious conversation, but my kind
Yeah.
of laid back, or my friend relationship, would be, nobody would have a direct conversation like that. They would just be
Yeah.
like, "Oh, you're probably being a dick,"
Yeah.
and then
Yeah.
and then they'd laugh about it. Nobody would actually elevate or
Yeah.
resolve anything, or
Mm.
like learn from it. And then I just remember, I mean, it was in seconds. Then you guys were having a super deep conversation while we are waiting for the door to open,
Yeah.
and I just never. I haven't forgot that, and then just that ability on both of you guys is for him to give feedback, and then you to receive it, and then also process it, and
Yeah.
then just have a conversation off the cuff. I know we were
Yeah.
going to Q Source, but then it was even before that.
Yeah, I think that's the number of times slow pitch has told me I'm out of line in my life has been a lot. No, it is an interesting thing, right? Just that, like, the that behavior's not normal. We don't see that modeled in a whole lot of places. I think F3 definitely taught me that is that, like, people giving you feedback, especially in the F3 setting, is because they care about you. Right?
Yeah.
And so then the need to be defensive or have your ego sort of flare up it's just not helpful. And so I think over the years it's been that's been modeled for me. And slow pitch is really good at calling guys out. I think that's one thing. I think he's and the more he knows you, the more he'll likely do that. But
Yeah, no, for sure. But yeah, and it's one of those deals. I kind of catch myself. We'll go to QSource and we'll have real open discussion, and then or talk to somebody, on a project or something, and you'll kind of want to, and you do need to continue that, but then also you need to understand,
yeah,
they aren't a part of the lessons that I am learning. You know what I
yeah,
mean? It's kind of like when you're in a small group learning something, then you try and go out to a different group and exercise those. You kind of have to step it up and understand your audience,
yeah,
which um, is a huge part of F3 too. There's so many different backgrounds and so many different lifestyles, and understanding how to manage that
yeah.
communication.
Something that I was going to ask you about. Q sources and Stripes. I hope you're listening, so I can give you crap. But I would always ask Stripes when I was in the West Sector role, like, when are we going to get a Q source in Bennington? When are we get? And he's like, I don't know that the guys are into it or whatever. And I remember like the first few times and the times I've been in the Crucible, you're probably one of the guys that's maybe more engaged and vocal. And I don't know if that's because it's in Bennington, in your community, because you know the guys, or it's something you've identified you want to work on. But talk me through, like, and maybe for guys that are listening that haven't gone to Q Source, like, what are you finding valuable about that time?
Yeah, so I mean, I think it is, I do have a comfort level there, Milk is, good buddy, Bernie, just that
Hmm.
kind of just sitting down with them is easy. And then, but also those guys set a great example
Yeah.
too, you know what I mean? And then, and I just, so many times, and that's what I remember going, to, after, even combine, I would sit there and I would listen. And I remember LPC 2 different times he was leading, and he would call me out and at the very end just be like, "You got to engage. You can't sit there." And those were bigger groups, and I wasn't as familiar with those guys, but I think I wasn't getting as much out of it. I was hearing a lot, but like I said, until you actually contribute, I don't I don't feel like I was gaining as much, because you sometimes you need to say those things, even if it's wrong, just say what you're thinking
Yeah.
and then see what the
Yep.
the feedback is. And that's what, and there's so many times on QSource I don't maybe haven't read it, or I don't understand it. But then I remember I think you were there, and Bernie's like, we were talking about Whetstone. He goes, I don't know exactly what this is supposed to look like, but it
Yeah.
goes, this is what it sounds like to me. And that's what
Uh,
it should be. Or I guess in my mind, you shouldn't have to know every sentence of every topic, not just Q source, but to actually engage in it. Like I
yeah.
said, that's where, well, just saying something and not being afraid that it's wrong. And then somebody's going to come back at you and then say, no, well, this is kind of how I viewed it. But if that's how you view it, you know, take what, take the lessons you can.
Yeah.
And
Yep.
I have been trying to be more intentional about it. And I feel like the intentionality then comes a comfort level. And then now I probably talk too much, because there's
Yeah.
guys, that
Don't
now
tell
are
it.
me,
Yeah.
that are sitting there,
Yeah.
just listening. And I probably need to do a better job of then now
Yeah.
reaching out and saying, what do you think? Is there something there that you'd like to add?
Yeah, LPC has a special secret sauce skill with leading group discussions. Like, I've watched that guy. Like, nobody thought. I remember one time at Catalyst, nobody thought we were having any sort of like serious discussion, and he just, like, we get there, we sit down, and he poses one question and proceeds to just like lead this group discussion. Like, he's just got it's some magic there in that guy's skill set. But talk me through, because I think Q source is one of the ways, right, that you build relationships. But so you're not a coffee drinker?
No, I did there for a little bit, and then I just, when it was cold when we started, we started in January when we first got coming out, and then so I would do it then. But then when it came around to spring, I was like, I'm not gonna drink it. I don't really enjoy the taste, and then
Yeah.
I was putting so much creamer in it. It
Yeah.
was probably, it's not like I was drinking black coffee.
So you go to coffee, and do you just drink water? Or?
Yeah, I just drink water.
Okay.
Yeah, then
Yeah.
every once in a while, like if it's super cold out or something. But yeah, anymore, I don't even have
What do
the
you do
coffee.
for like caffeine or energy, or you don't, or you're good
But
without it?
yeah, besides the one good thing in my adolescent years, I hadn't drank caffeine for 20 years.
Okay.
Up until I drank coffee at
F3.
F3. And the big thing was I cut out pop when I was 14 or 15 or whatever, and then I
Okay.
just never really had a use or a need for it. And then yeah, so that's why, and then I never really got into coffee. So I just try and stay hydrated with just water, and I will mix it with like Gatorade or something there. I'm trying to get away from Gatorade, but that's a whole nother yucca
Yeah.
deal you don't want to hear about.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
I just water it down to try and make it in my mind seem like it's not as bad for me as it
Yeah.
is, all the dyes.
So you don't need, you don't do any other caffeine. You're good to go.
Yeah, no, I just that's what I when people say that, I know my she has a pop, every day, and a lot of people do say that about coffee. I remember even when we would go, I've never had a cup of coffee outside of a cafeteria.
Yeah.
I never went home.
Yeah.
Then a lot of guys would say, "Well, I have 3 more cups, and I gotta have, a whole pot by noon."
Yeah. Yeah.
And no, I've never really needed, or I guess maybe I did. Maybe that's what I was missing, the energy level wise before.
Huh.
But uh,
Yeah, that's awesome.
yeah.
I do think it's cool because I think there are some guys that don't go to cafeteria because they don't drink coffee. So just calling out that like you don't have to drink coffee to go, right? You could drink water. I know like Mufasa drinks hot chocolate or whatever, but
Yeah, you feel like a cheapskate because you're not, you're sitting there. I bring my own cup in there, but
yeah.
no, yeah, I definitely recommend anybody don't, because I think that at least for me, I was kind of outgoing and certain my on my terms. Like
Yeah.
my wife always says, we'll go somewhere we don't know anybody, you won't talk to anybody, but then we go with our group friends and you won't shut up. I very much a comfort level and anxiety, kind of social anxiety, and
Yeah.
we see that in a couple of our kids, and I feel terrible because I know that comes from me.
Hmm.
But I would definitely recommend it. I remember Stripes, he said, that's the glue that
Yeah.
keeps you coming back. And I thought he was making up all these sayings. Well, then
Yeah.
it comes out that you
Sure,
guys
no,
got a whole
it's in the book.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I thought he was just very, very articulate and
Yeah.
had this thing nailed. But and it 1,000% is true, because sometimes you do look for, you're in the middle of a beatdown. It's really tough. It's like, well, we'll get to go inside here pretty soon, and we'll get
Mhm.
to, talk about last night's basketball game, or,
Right.
the football game coming up, and just kind of let off steam, or, just, relax a little bit. And that was a huge thing for me, was just getting to know. And that is because it is, if you really get after a beat down, it shouldn't be a whole lot of, chit chatting, right? In my mind. So then that is where you start to get to know people beyond just a passing by hello and how you doing? Do you need something?
Yeah. Love it. I'm curious. Talk to me a little bit more about the social anxiety or the anxiety thing. Is that something you feel like been dealing with your whole life, or is that something would you say you struggle with that, or?
Yeah. Yeah. So still, like, I don't like, my wife always gets a kick out of this. Like, if we ever have a way to walk to a seat or something, and there's 2 ways, you can walk in front of the whole crowd and then go up, or you can go behind the crowd and then come down.
Yeah.
I'll always do that. It just,
Yeah.
um,
You don't want to disrupt anybody else's
well, yeah, I just
experience,
like,
right?
you know what I mean? I just,
Yeah.
and so I just hate, I guess for whatever reason, it's always, I mean, I can feel my like heart, it's just like,
Yeah.
just the thought of it. And then, um, and one, and like, especially our oldest, I see a lot of that in her,
Mm.
and kind of same way, closed off around non-comfort level, but then, very outgoing around her couple of friends.
Yeah.
And that it just always is like that. And I don't know what it was, but then it would get into like a athletics standpoint, and that never bothered me, but I
Mm.
think I was in, a comfort level there. It didn't matter what
Yeah.
was going on peripherally,
Yep.
but for some reason, and maybe that's what it was, I was, when you're more aware of your surroundings, then you start to think about that. And then
Yeah.
you start to think, what do they think, judging yourself, and then, get bad thoughts. And it always, and I think it kind of comes from even generation or siblings on my side then too. And then, generationally,
Mm.
on my dad's side, a little bit more closed off, on things like that. And then, um, like I said, our couple of our kids somewhat struggle with it. Then one of them won't. It wants to be, the next Mariah Carey.
Right.
And so it's interesting how that works.
What's been helpful? Have you found anything that's helpful dealing with that, just or being more vulnerable and open, or?
Yeah, and I think, yeah, just understanding that, you are who you are, you know what I mean? And
Yeah.
in the grand scheme of things, if, you were to trip and fall in front of a whole crowd, then something else is going to happen 5 seconds later and no one's going to remember, you know. And I think it just those little things of having a comfort level with who you are, what you're doing, you know.
Mm.
And I know that sounds stupid, but if you're doing the right things, you know, the way, you know, do what you're supposed to do, when it's supposed to be done, the way it's supposed to be done.
Yeah.
Though those things, it has helped give me like a certain level of confidence. Like I never in a million years probably would have ever done this,
Yeah.
but you know, a couple of years ago, would
Yeah.
not just because I wasn't part of F3, but I just would not have
Yeah.
felt comfortable
Yeah.
talking about certain topics, or you know, even just having a one-on-one conversation would have been difficult.
Yeah. Well, you're doing great. Just
You know,
if you're wondering. Well, talk me through. I would be curious, like from so thinking about QSource and the second F space, like the concentrica, right? So your wife, your kids, shield lock, all that sort of stuff. Do you feel like has F3 had any impact on your family or the relationships there? Have you brought your kids out to work out at all? Or
Yep. So the kids have been to 2.0s at Buns a couple times, and then at Oracle
Mm.
for the 2.0 Olympics, and then
Yeah.
one other time. And they not a big fan of the time frame of it, but they really get a kick out, you know, because for so long I was getting up and I would be gone, and then I would be getting back right when they're getting up, and they were just so curious,
Yeah, like,
you know,
"What's Dad
oh yeah,
doing?"
what are you doing? And then they kind of saw us changing our habits. My wife has always worked out, but then when I would say coincided with F3, then I started to be serious about what I ate. You know, she was always kind of making her own thing, and then she really ratcheted up, and even like the ingredients that we're eating,
Yeah.
and then how we're making things. And so then that changed the kids,
Yeah.
you know, that changed their lifestyle quite a bit.
Yeah.
And so then they really, but they, you know, even now I haven't been posting as much. And Mike, our youngest, the other day said, "Dad, you never get up and work out anymore." You know what I
Oh,
mean? And she's
no.
not
Yeah.
wrong.
Yeah.
But you know, there for so long, it was I would say 4 out of the 5 weekdays I would go post, and then
Mhm.
depending on where I was post, sometimes I wouldn't make it back before they got on the bus,
Yeah.
and so I wouldn't see them in the morning, which is like difficult. Because that is a fun. Most mornings, it's a fun time.
Yeah.
And so I stay a little bit closer now, and every once in a while I'll venture out, but I try and get home by the time they get on the bus,
Yeah.
if at all possible. But they definitely notice that, and I think just we said I have more energy now. Like I said, I used to always fall asleep like about 7:30 when they're winding down. I would fall asleep in the chair when we're watching a movie to wind down every night. And now, you know, you have more time. They're staying up later. And then just our eating habits, you know, like we are very dialed into what we're putting in our body and their body, and
Mm.
in at home, at school, all the time, which they view as a kind of a buzzkill.
Yeah.
But
Yeah. Yeah. When do we get candy and pizza?
yeah, I always, you know, we get to hear why everybody else gets to take these nice snacks, and we have to take apples and carrots
Yeah.
and everything. But but we try and be corny, start with why. You know, this
Yeah.
is why,
Yeah.
and then they say, "Well, didn't you eat these things?" And we have to explain. Well, you know, there's so much has changed. You know,
Yeah.
the back in my day trick. You know,
Yeah.
I've become that guy. You know,
Yeah.
it was different food then, um, and it was prepared different too. You know, we ate at home. We never ate out. You know, just
Yeah.
because of resources at the time, and so and then like I said with my you know, I think it's been 1,000% both, because she would get frustrated. I had my lack of energy. You know, I
Mm.
wouldn't, when the kids go to bed, then I'd be so run down. And now I feel like I'm more open, just like we talked about, like having a
Yeah.
conversation. I understand there's a million other ways to attack things, right? I was, you know, pretty closed off and selfish.
Yeah.
And so gotten more into reading, you know, all the things. It just, the domino effect in you know, all directions and all positive. There are some setbacks, like we said, time wise, but and she doesn't like it when I'm going to bed earlier now, you know,
Yeah.
because then I used to be the one that would stay up all night, and then she'd be going to bed, and then now she wants to stay up and watch something, and I say, "Well, I'm in a pre-run," and then yeah, so I think there's a little bit of animosity between F3
Yeah.
and the amount of texts that I get at night. You know?
Mhm. Yeah.
Then if I'm on my phone, responding to guys. So, but in the end, it's been a huge, you know, plus for our family on
Yeah.
all angles.
Yeah, we should come up with a time like, okay, we're gonna make all pre-run commitments before, because I get the same. Like if I'm looking at my phone late trying to figure out where I'm posting, I'll get the like, what are you doing on your phone?
I know, yeah.
Yeah,
And then we try not to in front of the kids, especially at the end, when they're after supper, we try not to have our phones out and stuff. But sometimes you're getting 37 texts and
yeah,
you're, what the hell? Why aren't you responding? I'm seeing it on my watch, and then so I'll just grab it real quick.
yeah,
But even then, it's not. I shouldn't do it because it sets a bad example. But yeah, you kind of get into a shouldn't say a funk because it's not a funk, but like I said, a groove where you're getting reached out multiple
yeah,
times, and it is every night. I kind of need to get back into that. And Speedbump's been really good. I know he's laid up now, but he really um, kind of saw that I wasn't posting as much. And a lot of it wasn't F3 related. It was more family or like
sure, yeah,
just time commitments. We have, and then and work stuff was getting to be earlier, and so it got to be the easy answer to cut that out, which it shouldn't be. It should be I just go to earlier ones and then try and get back.
yeah,
But but now that I found out Speed Bump's a weasel
yeah.
shaker now, then now apparently that wasn't changing
Yeah.
either. So
Well, most recent text, I don't know. We might be taking the weasel shaker reins from him until he can post again. I don't know. It's not my department anymore. But what about shield lock? Have you been able to get with a group of guys to be intentional from a shield lock perspective, or whetstone? I guess since we talked about that.
no, nothing formally.
Yeah.
And I know, like I said, you guys really recommended that. Kind of have, I would say, informal,
Yeah.
group that we, communicate. And I know those guys are in their own shield locks, which is great. Um, but nothing formal right
Yeah.
now. But like I said, I do, there are a handful of guys and I would communicate, like I said, break, and I do communicate like what's going on in life. I
Yeah.
feel like they do too. And, but it hasn't formalized anything right
Yeah.
now.
Yeah. Part of me wonders, like, and I love as we were talking about QSource. One of the things that's a little tricky, right? The whole intent with QSource is like it's a framework, right? And so you're going to
Yeah.
find different things that work for you. And I do think the shield lock thing is kind of interesting because I think a lot of guys have what shield lock is saying we should have, right? In
Yeah.
terms of guys you can call at 2 a.m. or accountability guys, and so then it's like, well, do you really have to take that step and say, like, should we make this a formal shield lock?
Yeah.
I don't know. I think it's different for everybody, probably.
Yeah, and I think you said perfect there at the end. You know what I mean? Whatever, if you feel like you are getting out of it, you know what I mean? If you're
Yeah.
either giving, you're giving something and you're getting something out of it at that, whatever that agreement level is or form, how, the formality of it
Yeah.
is. And so that, like I said, I love that you guys, those boundaries are even there, that people
Yeah.
have thought about it. And then the intentionality of it, though, I think probably is good of saying,
Yeah.
because from what I understand, you kind of get together regularly and then you have very, very, candid life conversations. And sometimes it is, you know, harder, like I said, if you don't set that time and then set those expectations that is what we're going to talk about. We're not going to talk about,
Yeah.
the Bulls game,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
tonight or, this morning.
Yeah.
So it probably, in the long run, it probably is good.
Yeah, it's tough when one of your shield lock buddies breaks his ankle, and then you're sort of like, "Well, we can't talk on a pre-run anymore."
Yeah.
So, we're working through that. What?
Hey, are you the type of guy that likes to get up early in the winter to battle your jester? Do you love listening to people drone on and on and on about COVID in the gloom? Would you trust your vision to a guy nicknamed Cataracts? Well, if the answer to any of these questions is yes, fellas, you have bigger problems than you think. Dr. Cataracts, aka Dr. Wolf, can't solve all of your problems, but he can certainly help you solve the problems related to your eye health and vision. You will find many F3 principles throughout his practice. Check him out today at Exclusively Eye Care.
I would love to hear. So think about fitness, fellowship, faith, right on that third F piece. Talk me through, like, what's your journey been like through the years on the faith side of things?
Yeah. So, was raised, dad's side was very, 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 Catholic. Like I said,
Yeah.
all of it, him and his siblings went to Catholic school. And so that somewhat, even growing up, um, not to get too in the inside baseball, there was dissension within the family. That time frame of, I think it was combination of everything, like their time frame, and then the um which is what did I say? The intensity of the, you know what I mean, of
Sure.
the belief, or you know what I mean, of their
Yeah.
involvement with the
The
church, kind of. Yes,
devoutness or
very,
something, or
very.
yeah. Yeah.
And then there was other family dynamics there too. So then we, as then me and my, it was me and my sister. And then my parents got divorced right after I was born. And then I have a half brother with my dad.
Okay.
And so, um, and so then us growing up, both me and Michaela, that's my sister, then Cameron, we really didn't. And then on my mom's side, we didn't really practice, going to church. So we would go, on my mom's side, we would go pretty regularly. And then as an adult, I really haven't
Mm,
um practiced. We kind of, and me and Megan, she was great and she went to church quite a bit.
mm.
We both view it as kind of whatever that North Star, whatever that motivation for you to do the right thing for you and everyone around you,
Yeah.
that whatever that symbol is,
Yeah.
that's what everybody needs,
Yeah.
and so that's what we view it as internally with us. And so, like, as long as you are working towards something, be process oriented, like every little decision is based around a grander view or vision.
Mm.
That's really what we view on our end. And like I said, and as long as we're not, hurting anybody else with our, with what we are, how we're practicing, that's really where we're at. And
Yeah.
and like I said, it's been a great exposure and experience, and that's what shaped a lot of our, or I shouldn't say my decision makings and me and Megan's conversations, is hearing so much and so many different aspects.
Mm,
And
mhm.
that's what, within F3, it is a melting pot, like when you kind of get anywhere, but then it just is very enlightening to hear there's a million different ways to attack everything.
Yeah.
And then specifically, the faith. And I always just say, like, whatever relinquishing that trust, and that trust is like not knowing what tomorrow, or however far you want to get into the conversation,
Yeah.
but like whatever gets you to make that right decision,
Mhm.
that is what is important to us. And
Yeah.
and I do struggle with that. Sometimes I I feel like I have to check myself and even continue to, like, make right decisions. Does that mean I'm a bad person, as like a certain,
Yeah.
humans are survivalists, you know what I mean? And kind of take yourself of being selfish and making a better decision for someone outside of me, or, you know what I mean? Whether
Mm.
that's family or someone outside the family, and then that I know is the right decision for me, but just trying to get there. And I do struggle with that. And um, that's where I've brought it up to a couple different times. Does that mean there's something wrong with me internally, or,
Yeah.
I don't know how everybody else's brain works,
Yeah.
but I feel like there is a certain amount of selfish behavior on my end,
Mm.
and sometimes it has to be that second voice is the one that, it's not the unconscious mind, you know what I mean? It
Yeah.
is like, it's me stopping my original thought. And so that's something I do struggle with.
Yeah.
But
Yeah, I love it. It's so interesting, because we're all, like, regardless of, like, religion, right? We're all kinda trying to do the same. We're trying to be great fathers and husbands and just people, and so I do love, like, how you mentioned the F3 is sort of a melting pot of, like, all these different ways, and I think that's, like, I love the F3 definition of just, like, faith being believing in something greater than yourself, right? And
yeah.
even if we don't know what that is, I would be curious, do you feel like have you not gone to church because of your upbringing, do you feel like? Or has it just not been something you guys felt like you needed? Just more of a curious question, I guess.
Yeah, no, for sure. I think it's probably both sides of it.
Yeah.
Like, it was a learned behavior, and then I
Yeah.
reinforced that learned behavior. You know what I
Sure.
mean? By,
Yeah.
like, just familiarity.
Yeah.
Um, but then I mean, right, wrong, or indifferent, then I kind of made a decision. I um need to, like, consciously make an effort to have, like I said, whatever that North Star is, you know what I
Mm.
mean? And just like
Yeah.
any plan, you got to have a plan if you have your end goal in mind, then what is it going to take to get to that? And so then that
Yeah.
is, being the best, like I said, family man, dad, husband you can be. So then all those little decisions, oh, how do I continue to make those little decisions the right way?
Yep.
Um, you know, and like I said, on the selfish behavior side, I still going back to that, right or wrong, but so then my brother, he suffered with mental illness,
Mm.
very, very had really bad issues, and then he ended up committing suicide in 2012.
Oh, wow.
And then so then me and I had a lot of reflection there. I was 8 years older than him at the time,
Mm.
and then was in a little bit of communication, but then he had some issues. So then I got more involved and was very involved, right up until the end, and that really made me kind of question a lot of the things that I had been doing. You know what I mean? Going back to
Yeah.
selfish behavior, there was
Yeah.
times, why was I not 2 years before that? Why did it take, a significant event in his life for me to actually
Yeah.
reach out? But I mean, I was 27 at the time, unmarried, no kids. I wanted to do my thing,
Mm.
and so that I had a lot of growing up to do, and that really, um, you know, unfortunately, like I said, probably woke me up, I guess, to like,
Yeah.
I need to get my stuff together. And
Yeah.
then, so then, got engaged to Megan. 4 months after that, got married a year later, then started having kids. I just needed to grow up.
Yeah.
I'd been doing whatever I wanted, and I paid for that, and I don't know if it would have changed anything. And it is a regret. I told, I've it's come up a couple of times, there's not an hour that goes by a
Yeah.
day, you know what I mean, that I don't, and that is, I still try, and I think somewhat of me is compensating for that with,
They cut you.
no, you're good.
Trying to overcompensate for.
Yeah, so I feel like I was maybe overcompensating for, my lack of presence in Cameron's life.
Yeah.
And then, because like I said, then we got engaged, got married, started having kids right away.
You like turned it around
Yeah, like I
right
said,
after
went
that.
from,
Yeah.
which, then I was trying to kind of grow up as I'm growing up with a kid and
Yeah.
stuff. So I just had a long way to go in a short period of time, and still do.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's been a journey. I feel like there's some days I'm where I'm supposed to be, and some days
Yeah.
not, and there's longer stretches, but it seems like those are fewer and far between.
Yeah. I appreciate you sharing that. I'm sure I can't imagine what that's, having a younger brother, right? That loses his life in that way, right? I mean, just since it sounds like you have a sense of responsibility or almost guilt in that space, which
Oh
would be tough
yeah,
to deal with. Yeah.
yeah, definitely. And then try and learn from it. You know what I mean? It's just like anything when you try and explain it, because Cameron's birthday was just a couple weeks ago, and
Mm.
we get together with my dad and my sister, and we go out, and we've told them, they obviously know he died before they were born, and still explaining, suicide to them. Yeah, I think we're still not there yet. We
Yeah.
just talk about mental illness and
Yeah.
like, making sure we are talking about our problems, and then they'll understand. We'll try. We do tell them. We say, once you guys are to a certain point, we'll explain, exactly his illness, and that's what it. My dad, was very upset for a long time. And I said if he died of cancer, we would not, and I am right, wrong. I'm not a doctor. I said, he had an illness,
Yeah.
and he could not beat,
Yeah.
or,
Yeah.
get rid of. But I think it's just hard to conceptualize when it's kind of you can't feel it, you know what I mean? It's something not tangible, even
Yeah.
though it is, but it's not.
Yep.
And so that we've had some issues in the family, but then we just try and that, I think that gets me to talk more. Even then, I came a little bit more closed off after that, and mad at the world. And before and after that, but then now seeing how guys can relate and should
Yeah.
relate, and the
Yep.
big part of that's been F3.
Yeah.
So,
Well, I would say too. I mean, even just because like when I meet you, right? You're like super confident guy. You're funny. You got all these friends, and so to even hear you talk a little bit about like sometimes you get anxious, in a big crowd, right? It's like super helpful, I think, for myself, for other guys to hear. And so I think just, maybe if we can like teach men to open up a little bit, we can prevent more guys that are struggling by themselves, like your brother, right? I mean, maybe that's part of it. I don't know if that's the whole solution, but I think there's a lot of value there. Appreciate you sharing that.
Yeah, no, and like I said, and I know you've been a big part of suicide awareness, you know what I mean? And I appreciate everything. And then, like I said, it is a huge issue, especially I feel like not only because of my background, but like just sometimes like the age I'm getting to now, and then you kind of maybe sometimes get in the dog days of life, you know what I
Yeah.
mean? The sad clown of like, kids are kind of they're more self-sufficient, so they don't actually need you. And then maybe there's combative,
Yeah.
it's not the dizzy dad thing's over with,
Yeah.
everybody's got
Doesn't work anymore.
yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. Everybody, and so you kind of get in a funk. Just like just speaking from personal experience of like what value positive are you adding? Because then sometimes you feel like you're only disciplining because they get to a certain age, and then how do you shake being of value to those around you? And then you kind of wonder, well, if I'm not a value here where I am, like
Totally.
talking through it and like hearing guys that is, and I hate using the word normal, but like it's a common reoccurrence, and you're
Yeah.
not alone in that. To your
Yep.
point, and like said, like hearing it said, but then also I feel like speaking it is when it really,
Yeah.
comes. There was a line I read the other day, and it was talking about confession for
Oh yeah.
Catholics, and it was talking about how can a higher power understand that, and it said, and the rebuttal was it's for humans, it's
Mm.
a release for them, you know what I
Yeah.
mean? It's not for a higher power, it's for you to
Get it off your chest. Yeah.
exercise that, and
Yeah.
then like I said, get it out into the world,
Yeah.
like and I know and it's crazy how therapeutic it is. I'm not telling you anything you don't know. Like you can think of things 1,000 times, and that's just saying it that one time to that one person or those 5 people, or
Yeah.
and that's where I've really not been as understanding of sometimes my she'll vent about work, and I'll just be like, I don't understand what I don't
Yeah.
know what that software is going to do. And
Yeah.
but you just
Yeah.
take a step back. Well, she just needs to say this, and I'll do the same thing. She's not going to
Yeah.
understand what the concrete crew is going to do.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
I got to complain about it, and
Yeah.
then all's
Yeah.
right in the world.
Yeah,
And
I love it. It's this interesting thing, like like the more we say it out loud, and we like in our heads, at least is how it works for me. In my head, I create this story that other people are going to think. When I
mhm,
say this thing, they're not going to like me or accept me. So then the number of times I say it and the response is different, and it's actually like loving and
mhm.
accepting, then it sort of like gives you more power to like say no to the story that I've kind of made up. At least is how that really empowering.
No, you're 1,000% right. The more you let that run in your mind, and then or I guess for me, most of those scenarios are going to be negative, and it's just going to be a different iteration of that
Yeah.
negative scenario. So then it just even, why would I do that if 5 different things could happen? But you just are so blinded by the vulnerability of it and the judgment of
Mhm.
it. And it's if you're in the, I shouldn't say, broad brush, but if you're with the right people, and like I said, you've made the right decisions and the confidence to share with those people, you definitely need to pursue that.
Heck yeah. One of the questions I would have for you, does it when because I do this sort of on sometimes knowingly, but sometimes just is kind of what my COTs have become. But like when a guy gets up there, shares a Bible verse, or is like heavy on the faith side in a COT, like does that rub you the wrong way? I would think not, because you stuck around, but
No, no,
okay.
not at all. Like I said, I feel like I try and still, or not still, I try and get out of everything that I can, you know what I mean, without knowing maybe all the, like I said, background that maybe goes into some of the stories.
Yeah.
But like I said, just the actual lesson and the message,
Yeah.
how can I pivot that, or not even pivot it, but then how can I incorporate that into my
Yeah.
today, tomorrow, this week, my decisions?
Yeah.
And then, because then so many of them are, you know, I don't want to see, like dismissive, but a lot of the messages are very similar, just presented in a different way,
Yeah.
with a
Yeah.
different.
Yep.
And so that's what I try and do. No, I 1,000% have gotten way more than I've given from, all aspects, whether it's, like you said, maybe more religious than what I'm used to,
Yeah.
or, just an open discussion. So no, I don't feel like that, in my opinion, is a deterrent for me at all, or anybody else.
Yeah. I love it. I think the cool thing, right, is like this is sort of the like in F3 we do a lot of these things on the faith side, but I think because we're not prescribing a religion, then it's accessible for anybody regardless of where they're at, what they believe, sort of if they go to church or not, right?
Yeah.
Like I love that. And some guys over the years have sort of said, well, F3 is not, it's either too churchy or it's not churchy enough. Like there's a lot of guys on those sides of
Yeah.
things. And I was just talking to Dark Helmet the other day, and he said there was actually some group that is starting their own thing because they felt like F3 was not religious enough, and so I love that, like I would say you're maybe like in the middle, like you're
Yeah.
not, and it seems to work really well for you.
Yeah, no, for sure. I never have been uncomfortable. I can say one time
Yeah.
in almost 2 years of how many times of posting, and um but not to speak for everybody else, but like I said, I would just encourage people, if there is a situation, like I said, either try and get the best you can or get a message out of it, or have that conversation,
Yeah.
you know what I mean? But also without restricting some. That's the biggest thing, is I never ever want
Yeah.
to restrict somebody else's belief or their whatever their North Star is. So that's why I it would have to be a message that was restricting somebody else's, you know what I
Yeah.
mean? Like,
Yeah.
but like if somebody is out there and they are, like I said,
Mhm.
have a positive, message they are sending that is making them better. I don't know how selfish it would it be of me to say that that's not exactly what I believe, and how is that right to want to live in an echo chamber where
Yeah.
you're only hearing the same things over and over and over again, and you're not being exposed to what else is out there.
Yeah. Well said. Well, tell me, so some guys may or may not know this, but I want to get your thoughts from a leadership perspective. So we kind of talk about Fitness Fellowship Faith, and then our mission, right, is to invigorate male community leadership. You have your own business, so you do a lot of leading, right, on a regular basis. But
Yeah.
but talk me through, like, I don't know, VQ, just leading workouts in general, being a site Q. What did you learn from those things? Anything that you were able to take to sort of daily life?
Yeah, so I mean, probably just like everybody, was very, and maybe it goes back to my anxiety, but I can remember driving to my VQ, and we were gonna do 8 miles. You were there. It was like
Yeah.
me, you, Truly, speed bump. And I did the first four, and then I set up, and I remember driving. Like, man, I just wish this was somebody else's cue. You know what I mean? Because I
Yeah.
was like, so
Yeah.
I was all in on F3, but then it was
Yeah.
like the first time I had like
Yeah.
anxiety about it. And it's just like, I always tell people, it's like speech class in college. You think everybody's going to be breaking down every single word, and then it's got to be pretty, it's got to be a one-off for people to
Yeah.
still be talking about it later, either way. And
Mhm.
so, but yeah, I had VQ at Badger, and then, Stripes, asked me to take the flag at Badger, which I was completely like shocked and honored, you know what I mean? And he was, it still is, is a great ambassador for F3 and everywhere, and specifically in Bennington.
Mhm.
And it was a huge honor. And like I said, I loved like every second of it. It was kind of right when r- Bennington, it was starting to really, or I guess from when my exposure
Mhm.
really take off.
Yep.
And so they're getting to see so many guys, and then just seeing then guys come and then have their VQ, and then seeing them, and like I think I
Yeah.
Spokes had a conversation with him the other day. His VQ, and then not that long after, then has the flag at Paradise.
Yep.
I just went to um baptizes one year at block party last
Yeah.
Friday, because I was on the queue there for him, and then that popped up on my phone, so I sent it to him in street dance, and we had a good laugh about that. And it just is so awesome to see those guys that really lean in and what they are getting out of it, and then how they're passing it forward. And that was a huge um blessing for me. Like I said, just being involved in Badger and seeing all those guys, and in the growing community in Bennington, and just F3 Omaha in general.
Mm.
And then now Red Dirt, could not ask for a better guy. You know what I mean? I still, like, at the Flag Pass, still remember like one of the first times I worked out with him, he was doing like perfect push-ups, and I
Yeah.
was just trying to get by. It was one of those deals. I wasn't
Yeah.
doing weight. and it's just he does things the right way, the way they're supposed to be done, when they're supposed to be done,
Yeah.
and he's an awesome leader in the Bennington community as well. And so, um, no, there's so much upward trend all over F3 Omaha.
Yeah. Any advice that you would have your time as a site keyword, maybe even just other leadership advice for guys that are leading a team or leading a site?
Um, I would say, like, if you are hesitant or if you think that is somewhere you want to be, reach out to someone, and maybe not to say, "Hey, I want your flag," or reach out to a site queue that you maybe don't go around that much, and just kind of ask for what it all entail, not all entails, but like see if it is what you're looking for. You know what I mean? It
Yeah.
was. I really was honored, and I took it as a responsibility. And not that it's a huge, task or anything, but if you are interested and you feel like, or if you feel like there's an opportunity that you would like that's coming up, I mean, I would just be open and honest and see what the feedback is.
Yeah.
Um, and then outside of F3, if it's going to lead to positive, mindset, more positive leadership opportunities, or,
Mm-hmm. Yep.
within life and work.
Heck yeah. I love it. It's so interesting because I think, we see all sorts of different guys come in, and I would say something has gotten like stickier in the last, I don't know, couple of years, right? I don't know if it's maybe some other things going on in terms of like, really men trying, like, realizing the need to be invigorated, but the Bennington community has been a fun one to watch just like explode, and then guys stay around. I mean, I
Oh
was
yeah.
just talking to somebody the other day that like, and it hasn't been that cold yet this winter, but like it seems like there are more guys staying through the cold months when we used to just see this sort of drop off. So like to your point, right, of like seeing these guys like come in and they get into it, they do their VQ, and then they all of a sudden become a site queue. Like it's just really awesome to see.
Yeah, I mean, the amount of, guys, and I hate even naming people, Tooth Fairy, Slim Jim, all the, you know what I mean? Those
Yeah.
guys are all in. And it just, obviously Milk is a huge part of that. And
Yeah.
and he does a ton of work, with, you said, Crucible TV and QSource, and the amount of time and effort he puts into that. And it just, yeah, for whatever reason, and I have no comparison because I haven't lived anywhere else. I know I go to sites, but like I said, to see actually the day to day, week to week growth and the turnouts, I don't know if it's an outlier or maybe it is,
Yeah.
but it just seems like it is. And the amount of like really like intentional, high quality, and they all are. I hate, that's why I hate singing people out
Yeah.
there. Not that anybody's not high quality, but the guys that are all in,
Yeah.
jumping, leaning in and doing everything, queuing all over the place, site queues, starting sites, and everything that goes into that. Nightstand now has now we have every day in
Yeah.
Bennington,
Yeah.
it was just Tuesday, not just, but it was Tuesdays and Saturdays when I started, and then
Mhm.
bullpen was shortly after. And
Here we are.
yeah,
Yeah.
who would have thought?
Yeah, I love it. Well, I appreciate you taking time to share your story. I just have to affirm, I think like it speaks volumes, right? Like when you came out to help me at our house, like we had
Oh,
maybe known each other for a couple weeks or something, and you're like, I can help this guy, right? So just, very selfless, and then just even just watching you lean in. And I think one of my favorite things about you is you're always willing to acknowledge, like, yeah, I probably need to work on that, right? And you're not like, even though you've grown so much, you're still like in a spot where you're like, I want to be better, right? So just that focus on like, how can I be better than I was yesterday? So where we like to kind of wrap up is like, where do you currently need prayers or support or encouragement? Like, what's on your list there when you think about that?
um, so yeah, I mean, this time of year, well, I always, uh, it is tough for our family, because like I said, uh, Cameron, his birthday was in, December 4th, and then he passed away,
Mm,
closer to Christmas. And so like, it is tough time on our family. And like I said, me and Megan, and then my dad, my sister. And so that, and like I said, but also and I need to get better about it and not hiding from it, so we try and talk about it with our kids, but it does, and I know it's tough for my dad this
yeah.
time of year and understanding all that. But I would say just not everybody, not our family exclusively. The holidays is a great time for a majority of people. I guess I would feel, but it's also a really tough time
Yeah.
for a lot of people, and that's why and you just see it in the amount of work F3 does.
Yeah.
Ketchup organizes the vet gift drive, and like he says in that, just any little thing, and them knowing somebody is willing to take the time
Yeah.
is a huge part, and that's what I like. We try and be cognizant of it's a great time for a lot of people, but also it could be the worst of times because people don't have that, some person or, that family member to share that with. So it could also be the darkest of times.
Yeah.
And so I would say prayers or, I mean, if people could just be, open to that and and help out, any way you can,
Yeah.
with, it doesn't have to be a financial help, if it's time or helping somebody on the side of the road, any little thing like
Yeah.
this time of year can have that pay it forward effect and really pay off for somebody and then keep that ball rolling.
Heck yeah. Well said. I'll be praying for you on that. I can only imagine what this time of year is like for you. But we'll do a little Namo to wrap us up.
Okay.
I'll start us off. Brandon Fleehardy, 39 The Plague. Ah!
And then I am Brandon Mulder, 41 Dinger.
Dinger. And we say she gone, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Like it hit it out of the park. I appreciate your time, brother.
Scars on our hands, hope in our chest. We're not defined by the weight of the test. Brothers in step, we carry the flame. Different roads, but the heart beats the same. Every man's got a story to tell. From the valley low to the mountaintop yell. Every man's got a story inside. Standing strong, we won't hide. Every man, yeah, every man's got a story. We've been broken, we've been bruised, but we rise again and we don't get to choose. Through the fire, through the fight, every man's story burns in the night. Scars on our hands, hope in our chest. We're not defined by the weight of the test. Brothers in step, we carry the flame. Different roads, but the heart beats the same. On a story to tell, from the valley low to the mountaintop yell. Every man's got a story inside. Different roads, but the heart beats the same. Every man's have a story to tell. From the valley low to the mountaintop yell. Every man's got a story inside. Standing strong, we won't hide. Every man, yeah, every man's got a story. Every man's got a story. Voices rise like thunder, they roll. Truth in the pain, it's shaping the soul. Chains may rattle, but they break in time. Every man's story is yours and mine. From the struggle to the glory, every man's got a story. In the dark or in the light, we keep marching through the night. Every man's got a story inside. Every man's got a story to tell. From the valley low to the mountaintop hill.